kind of jumping into it, let's talk, kind of really quickly. Let's talk, Joshua, what do you think was your favorite or the best pick for the Ravens in this draft?
The best pick for the Ravens, I don't want to sound like I'm hating. The best pick for the Ravens was Zay Flowers. My best pick, though, was Tavius Robinson. Honestly, I did, when we talked about, when we recently dropped the episode, when we talk about, the needs and when we ranked them, edge rusher was pretty up there for me. To answer that, the answer in the fourth round with a guy that you can move inside and outside, a guy that has a high motor, a guy that doesn't give up, a guy that, that believes in, creating havoc on that defensive line, and you could possibly plug in immediately, possibly. I'm saying possibly, y'all. But we do have we do now have a edge rusher whisperer inside the facility, so we might can see some high production early, out of this guy. So you never know. So, but Tavius Robinson, that's going to be my best pick of the draft. How about you? Who you got?
I don't think there's any doubt in my mind. It's Kyu Blu Kelly. It's Kyu Blu Kelly. There's no doubt in my mind that it's Kyu Blu Kelly, because I think that he is somebody that is going to step up big time for this team. I don't think he's a project. I think he's somebody that can play right away, not as a starting, number one corner, but as a number three. He's lined up in the nickel before. You can line him up out wide. Recent Ravens draft picks at corner have been developmental guys. Brandon Stevens was a developmental guy. Jalen Armour-Davis was a developmental guy. I don't think Pepe was. I think Pepe can play. I think Pepe could play from day one, and he did, and I like the way that he performed.
Yeah.
So if the Ravens rock out this year and go with Marlon, Pepe, and Mr. Kyu Blu Kelly, I'm going to be okay with that. That's not my expectation. I think they'll go get a Marcus Peters or get a Rocky Ya-Sin or go after somebody. But I just really like his game to be able to just say, hey, we have a man coverage corner that has ball skills and has played in a good conference and has played against good competition and has the work ethic and has the willingness to play special teams, the willingness to do the things that not everybody's going to want to do, because that's how you have to play at Stanford. Stanford is a tough school to play college football at, and that's why they're so coveted in the draft, is because they do things differently, right? You cannot just go in as a 5-star recruit. You have to have like a 4.0 GPA. You cannot transfer to Stanford. You have to get into Stanford as a transfer and then try and get onto the football team. That's why they get no transfers. That's why it's so hard to get people to play. You don't get to play your freshman year. You don't get to play your sophomore year for almost everybody. And yet, Stanford players hit very well in the draft, and they're typically later guys, right? Like, that's how they typically do things. It's just, hey, this guy's going to be a hard worker. This guy's going to compete. And there's a plenty of Stanford secondary players in the NFL right now. Justin Reed, Paulson Adebo. Richard Sherman just retired, but he was another one. I think the next one is just going to be Kyu Blu Kelly. It's just, hey, here's a solid corner that came out of Stanford and slid because people didn't target him his senior year. He played the whole year.
You can't be mad at that. Like, yo, if you don't get targeted, like, oh yeah, we staying away from that side. It's just like basketball. If you have the best defender, if your team known to have one of the best defenders, you're gonna go to your off ball guy. You're gonna be passing that ball around. You're gonna be making that man tired. So, anybody has a problem with that, like, you don't understand sports. I'm gonna just say that. Yeah. I ain't gonna say don't understand football. You just don't understand sports.
No, I agree. And what do you think would be your worst pick?
Oh man, I've been thinking about that one, man. Honestly, I can't say it's a worst. I don't have a worst pick right now. The reason I say that, because when I look at this office, when I look at this draft, when I see the guys that we drafted, the Ravens are not going to go for always the sexy picks. They're not going to go for the picks that we're going to always understand. They're not going to go for the picks that we feel like, oh, as a fan base, we need. They're going to go for the people that they feel is best player available. They're also going to go for the players that they feel like that could be immediate impact, and they pride themselves on on BPA, the best player available in that round, and that's what they did. They went at the guys that they felt like was best player available. So I don't have a worst pick. I feel like this was a solid Ravens type of draft with each pick.
Yeah. And on the other side of things, the worst pick, I don't necessarily think they had one. But if I had to pick one, I'm probably going to say Trenton Simpson.
I was leaning onto it. I just didn't want to go there.
But I really like him. Like, yeah. I hate having to say the worst pick because I do think he's going to ball out.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's also just difficult to tell, hey, what are we going to be able to do we didn't get that third safety. Instead, we went after a linebacker.
Yeah.
And I think maybe it rubs PQ the wrong way. I think it just might have some connotations that maybe hurts the linebacker core in the short run.
It did.
Like, that's my thought on it. It's like, hey, it's kind of weird you're drafting, kind of did the same thing you did to Chuck Clark, doing it. Even if we keep PQ, there's questions as to whether we do that, 5th year option.
Yeah.
And then we go out and we draft a linebacker in the 3rd round. Even though I really like the pick, I think it's one of the better picks they made. But in terms of how it may affect things for that defense, I think it might hurt things.
Yeah, me personally, they're not going to pick up his 5th year option. I do feel like they could have waited to next year, to replace PQ. That's just my opinion. I do see why that could, if we had to pick, why it could be the worst pick of the draft. When you do certain things, it just stirs the pot. Sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a bad way, and our fan base, they're quick to get on it. They go look at the Instagram real quick. They look at the Twitter real quick. Oh man, this guy removed all Ravens information or affiliation out of their hitter and everything like that. So people started trashing PQ. Like I said before, PQ was put in a position where initially he wasn't going to thrive. Mm-hmm. He didn't have no one to work with under him. Work with him, excuse me. Yeah, Josh Bonds came in late, but still, he's no superstar. PQ didn't have CJ Mosley. He didn't have Ray Smith. He didn't have Ray Lewis. He didn't have a Daryl Smith with him. No, PQ was out there by his lonely trying to figure it out. And he's younger than Adafio Way. And he actually has a little bit more football experience than Adafio Way. So we all saw what PQ can be when he actually plays his natural position. When he plays the weak inside linebacker with a strong Mike inside linebacker with Roquan Smith. So I'm not going to say, with the Trenton Simpson, PQ is immediately out. No. Mike McDonald has a level of creativity where he gonna use all his weapons to the best of his ability and get high production out of them. So I feel like Trenton Smith is a guy they feel like they can still can plug into this defense and still keep PQ on this defense as well.